All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
We got
Vid.
we got a claim about the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms,
Right.
and diversity hiring practices, and how all this is maybe bumping up against a presidential executive order.
Interesting.
So the source for all this is a YouTube video from 2A News Now, a channel that focuses on Second Amendment issues.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
what's kind of intriguing about all this is this video is saying that the ATF is like defying a direct order from former President Trump.
Okay.
And maybe even trying to, hide it a little bit. So if that's true, that really raises some questions about transparency and, how government agencies work.
Absolutely. Those are some serious accusations.
Yeah. So let's lay it out, okay?
Yeah, please.
So the video zeroes in on this executive order that President Trump, put out when he first got into office.
Right.
And it targeted these DEI hires.
Diversity, equity, inclusion?
Exactly. Diversity, equity, and inclusion in federal agencies.
Got it.
And they're claiming that the ATF basically just ignored this order. And instead of putting these DEI employees on leave, like the order said to, they, supposedly just changed their job titles on the ATF website.
Okay.
And they point to this one specific example, this chief diversity officer, who now, if you look at the website, it looks like their title is senior executive.
Interesting. Interesting.
So what do you think? I mean, was this a common practice, do you think?
Well, the whole chief diversity officer role, that's become way more common recently, especially in government.
Yeah.
They're usually the ones leading those initiatives for inclusivity and equity in the workforce. Think recruitment, training, all that.
Got it.
So in the ATF's case, if this title change really was a reaction to that executive order, it could maybe mean they were trying to keep those DEI functions going, but without directly going against what the order said,
Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
Kind of a workaround.
So this executive order, though, was pretty controversial, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Right.
Big time.
Yeah.
People who supported it, they often talked about reverse discrimination.
Right.
They were worried that DEI initiatives were actually leading to hiring practices that favored certain groups over others. But people who opposed it, they said DEI was super important to address, these systemic inequalities and to make the workforce actually reflect the population,
And I think this accusation, even if it's not true,
Yeah.
it kind of plays into what some people already think about the ATF.
True.
You think back to controversies like there was that raid on Cho Manley's home.
I remember that.
And that really fueled distrust in the agency, at least among some groups.
Right.
So how does that history, affect how people see these new accusations?
Well, the ATF has definitely been involved in some high-profile stuff over the years, and some of it has gotten a lot of criticism. So you've got mixed opinions about them.
Yeah.
It's natural that some people, especially the ones who already kind of distrust the ATF, are going to be more likely to believe these accusations.
Right.
It just feeds into that existing narrative.
Makes sense. And this video also kind of throws out this idea that maybe other DEI hires have been, moved around.
Oh, interesting.
Within the ATF.
So they're not just changing titles, they're
shuffled around.
moving people to different departments, maybe?
Yeah.
Wow.
What kind of investigation would you need to prove or disprove that?
That's a good question, and it shows why investigations are so important.
Yeah.
You need to look at the ATF's internal records.
Okay.
I'm talking personnel files, communications between the higher-ups, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
You'd have to compare staffing data before and after the executive order.
Yeah.
You might even have to talk to current and former employees.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it'd be a big undertaking.
So this is bigger than just one agency or one executive order, right?
Exactly.
What's the bigger picture for our listeners?
It all comes down to government transparency and accountability. How can people make sure agencies are actually following the rules?
Yeah.
We've got things like congressional hearings, Freedom of Information Act requests, investigative journalism.
Right.
All of that's super important to keep people in power in check.
And don't forget whistleblowers.
Oh, absolutely.
They are often the ones who come forward.
Huge risk to them.
Yeah.
But they bring those potential problems to light.
It's really important to protect them.
Totally agree.
Make sure they feel safe to come forward.
If they don't feel safe, they're not going to say anything.
Exactly.
And then we've got even bigger problems.
This all ties into something really important, especially nowadays.
What's that?
Got to be a critical thinker, right?
Absolutely.
especially with all this politically charged stuff.
It's everywhere you look.
Exactly. You can't just take everything at face value.
You got to dig deeper, look at the sources.
So to recap, we've got this accusation from a YouTube video that the ATF might be ignoring a presidential order on DEI hiring.
Right.
Is it true? Maybe, maybe not.
The evidence is still out.
But it raises some serious questions
Sure.
about how agencies operate, about transparency, and about the need for us all to be more critical.
Couldn't agree more.
This deep dive has really shown us how complex these situations can be.
Definitely complex.
We need to look at the context, consider all sides.
Absolutely. Don't jump to conclusions.
But what do you think about all this?
Yeah, let's hear from the listeners.
If you had to get to the bottom of this, where would you even start?
What evidence would convince you?
Let us know your thoughts.
Yeah.
This is a conversation that needs to keep going.
Definitely.
All right, see you next time.
See ya.